Welcome back to the Hope to Hope Conference. I'm Kim White with the My Sexy Business team.
And I'm Coni Meyers with the Crystalline Moment Success Movement and Publishing.
I am so excited about this day. We have had an incredible day already.
Yeah, it's only 10 o'clock.
Yeah, well, Pacific
time.
This princess is trying to get this time zone worked out. But we are excited because we have on this session someone who I met a couple years ago. He was the keynote speaker. He speaks all over the world, and he is incredible. He had me laughing and crying and everything in between whenever he was speaking, and I cannot wait to get started, so I'm not even going to make this long. Welcome, Rich Hopkins, to Hope to Hope.
Hey, thank you, Kim. Connie, I appreciate the opportunity.
We thank you for being here. Now, give us a quick rundown of what you do and what you're up to. I know you speak all over the world, and I know you're a keynote speaker for huge organizations. I know those things. I know you're a dad. I know you're a husband. I know you're awesome, and I know in your part-time you're Superman. But tell us what else you do.
Well, I do a lot. I do quite a bit. I mean, like you say, you get 6 kids. With 6 kids, you're always doing a lot. And that's one of the reasons that I work from home. As you can see from behind me, I do not have a corporate job. But when you have 6 kids, your office is officially the only open room in the house, the same room that houses the water heater. So that's fine with me, because usually I'm not doing video. Usually I'm just doing phone calls. But the reason I'm doing those is because my main primary purpose in life is to coach other speakers, to help them find their message. While I give my message when I have the opportunity to, as the Win Anyway guy, I really find a lot of satisfaction in helping other people discover their message, create it, and then go out and deliver it. So it's a tremendous amount of fun working with a wide diversity of people with a huge spectrum of topics that they want to talk about. I mean, everybody's different. And not everybody wants to be a motivational speaker. Some people want to talk about health and fitness. Some people want to talk about sales. Some people want to talk about customer service. The key is helping them make that message resonate with an audience, because the last thing we ever want is to listen to a speaker who's talking all about them instead of talking about what they can give to us. So that, I would say, is the number one thing I do, after, of course, being a husband and a father.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't even know if you'll remember, but you did a session at one of the conferences that I attended, and that during that session, you called for volunteers to come up, and you were going to kind of critique them and help them and guide them in their storytelling. And I got up and spoke about the loss of my son. My oldest son was killed in a hunting accident, and I got up and spoke about it. And my opinion was I needed to not cry. I needed to be very, mindful of not upsetting everyone, because it was actually a story of, that turns out to be a blessing, not his death, but the things that came from what happened when he passed away and the things that changed in me. And this conference is actually an example, because I just found my notes. I was cleaning out some things, and I found my notes where at his funeral, I actually told the starfish story for the first time. And that's actually what this conference is all about, helping just one person, if nothing else. But I was trying to tell my story, but I was trying not to be emotional. And when I got finished, I was so surprised by your feedback, because I'm thinking I'm protecting everybody. And you told me that because I blocked that and was not letting myself be emotional, I was telling the audience that I was incongruent, or that it was it was not effective. It was not effective to hold back my emotions and hold back. And I thought that was such great advice. You had no idea at the time, like all the places I would be speaking, or all of the people that would be impacted, because probably since I saw you last, I've probably spoken to over 100,000 people.
Wow. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, but I thank you because you helped me not be insincere or incongruent in what I was telling them, that you can get through those things. But I just didn't know. I didn't know better. So just that one piece of advice impacted me greatly, and it impacted a lot of people that I then went on to speak in front of. So I know that what you're doing is powerful.
Well, I appreciate you giving me that feedback, because, I end up coaching a lot of people in situations like that, and sometimes I have no idea if what I've said sticks with them or helps them as they go forward, because you can always tell somebody something, but you have no control over whether they use it or how it actually works for them. So it's a blessing to me to hear from you that piece of advice stuck with you and worked for you so well.
Well, it definitely did, and it caused other people to be free to be emotional as well. And I think that's one of the keys, is it gave permission to everyone in the room to be however they felt, instead of having that wall up so that nobody could feel comfortable, which is what, you talked about. And I think that it was great advice. Thank you.
So I have to ask, how did you end up coaching people that want to be speakers? How did that come to be?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't something I ever thought I would do, although I've never been someone to shy away from telling somebody else what to do. When I was in my mid-20s, I got involved with Toastmasters, which you guys both know about, and that was the conference that I spoke at where I got to meet you, Kim.
Yes.
And Toastmasters is a worldwide organization dedicated to helping people learn how to become better public speakers as well as better leaders, because the two kind of go hand in hand. And after I'd been in Toastmasters for a few years, I'd gotten some notoriety within my district and particularly within my club. And one day, an older gentleman was visiting our club because he had needed some help with public speaking, but his help was a little bit more urgent than what Toastmasters could deal with. He needed to give a Father of the Bride speech the next month. And so the people that he talked to in my club sent him to me, suggesting that perhaps I could coach him. Now, I'd never done this before, beyond Toastmaster evaluations, but I took him on, and we spent the next month kind of having dinner every week and talking about what he wanted to talk about, working together. I helped him write his speech. I helped him film his speech and gave him feedback that he could actually witness for himself, see some of the habits that he had, what he was doing. We worked very hard for him to write a speech that truly came from his heart. And it was funny because I didn't charge him very much, but he ended up giving me like an extra check every time we met. And I found out later that this wedding was taking place on top of a castle in Vienna, and that he was actually a real estate developer up in Vail. So he was quite the wealthy to-do client. And for me at the time, I was just helping him give a talk from his heart. And after I heard about what a success it was for him and for his family, I realized I really enjoyed doing what I was doing, and apparently I was fairly good at it. And so I've spent that was 2004, so I've spent the last 13 years just working to continue to do that, to develop my skills so that I can help other people develop their skills.
Well, you are an excellent speaker. I will tell you that. You're an excellent coach, but you are also an excellent speaker. You told the story, and like, you were keynote. I was just one of the little workshop, speakers. I was way in the back, but you were what everybody was listening to and talking about. Can you tell just like maybe a little bit about your story so that people can understand what an incredible speaker you are?
There's so many different parts of my story. You don't live as long as I have. I don't know about you two young'uns, but I've had a lot of experiences in my life. And I think primary for me is what my physical life has been. Because when I was born with a physical defect where my left leg is smaller than my right leg. And they didn't know what the problem was. They had no idea what was happening. They thought it might be clubfoot. They thought it might be polio. Yeah, it was long enough ago. They actually thought it could be polio. It wasn't any of those things, and they never actually diagnosed me with any particular birth defect. And I had several surgeries before I was 10 years old, most of them at the University of Wisconsin. And my mom tells me about one of the surgeries. The doctor came up to her as they were next to my bed and said, "Wow, that went better than we thought it would," which I'm not sure you really want to hear from your doctor, although it's better than that didn't go as well as we hoped it would. So they were doing experimental surgeries on my leg to even enable me to be able to continue to walk. And as I got older, I faced the typical teasing, the hop-along, rich hop-along, and all the different things about the way I walked, because I walked with a limp my whole life. And my doctors would always tell me that I needed to find a desk job because my leg was not going to last my entire life. Of course, me, being a kid, I figured they didn't know what they were talking about, and I was going to live forever, and everything was going to be fine. So I tried out for the basketball team and didn't get doctor's approval, but I still played a lot of basketball, at least in the neighborhood. When I got out of college, I ended up having an outside sales job, so I was up on my feet and walking all over the place all the time. And then when I turned 38, the doctors turned out to be right, because I got up in a morning in January and I could not walk. I couldn't put any weight on my left ankle. And I'd had days like this before. I'd had a sore ankle. I'd had a sore leg at various times, and it always got better. So I figured, well, I'll just stay in bed and it'll get better. But it did not get better. And I learned a lot over the next 3 weeks about what it was like to live a life where you couldn't walk. And I discovered just how messy your shag carpet gets when you have so many kids, just from crawling around all the time. I finally went to the doctor, and the doctor said, they took some x-rays, they looked at it, they decided they could fuse my ankle, or they could give me a very large brace, or they could cut it off, which really isn't something you want to hear, particularly when it had never come up before. And I ended up going for the brace option. And when I went in to get the brace fitted, the person helping me fit the brace was an amputee himself. And he had had the similar amputation to what they were looking for me, which was below the knee on his left leg. And he talked about how much more freedom he had, and that a brace, while it enabled you to keep your leg, it did not give you a lot of freedom of movement, you couldn't really bend very much in the brace. And so I decided, after another few days, that I needed to learn to let something go, that I needed to find a way to take something that I had worked so hard to think was always going to be there and upgrade to something that was going to work better for me. So for the last 11 years, I've enjoyed what I tell my audiences is my new foot smell with my super deluxe robot leg. And, I just got a new leg a couple of weeks ago, actually, right before I went and did a TEDx talk. I got a new leg, and It's lighter and bouncier and happier than any of the legs before it.
I love it. I love it.
Well, I look at I look at your story and I think there are so many reasons that you could have stopped. Like you could have just laid down, you could have stayed in the bed, you could have, not gone on, you could have stayed in isolation. I could go on and on. All of the list of things that you could have chosen, but you didn't. What really motivated you to press on? Because I know your philosophy, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, because it's not something that you chose lightly. It's not something that you just were born with this great attitude. You have to choose it. You have to choose what you've chosen, and you're such an inspiration because of what you've chosen. But how did you come to that point? How did you not just be depressed and stay home?
Oh, sure. You have to choose your attitude every day. And, it had to start really when I was a kid. I can't really stop and pinpoint. What I talk about is packaged as the win anyway life and a win anyway attitude, and finding a way, no matter what your circumstances are, to win anyway. But I was living that a long time before I ever gave it a name. And I think it was just, for me, growing up with a physical disability, instead of maybe having it happen to me after I'd been, quote, normal, gave me somewhat of an advantage, because, hey, this is me and you have to deal with me. I never looked at it as I was this and now I'm this. Just, this is me. This is who I am. So I've always kind of had you can tell me whatever you want to tell me. You can judge me however you want to judge me. And this is who I'm going to be anyway. Mm-hmm. And when I really realized that pretty much everything in my life revolved around the concept that my victories were my own decision, that my wins were what I decided they were going to be versus what the world said they were, that's when I really realized that was my life philosophy, that the win anyway philosophy existed, and it was something that I could share with the world, because we spend our lives being judged, being told that we aren't enough, that we aren't winners, that we're losers. There's only one winner in whatever category you'd like to talk about. There's only one best of. And that's, life is not a competition. And yeah, if you're playing football, there's only one Super Bowl winner. But life is not football. And I know there are a lot of fans out there right now going, oh, no, that's not true. But anyway, our life is only a competition if we make it as such. Mm-hmm. And we even then can control what that competition is and who we're competing against. And what I'm saying is compete against yourself. Set your own parameters, your own goals, work towards those. And if you fall short, well, take a look. What have you done as you've gone towards that goal? What have you accomplished? And celebrate that. As if we spend our life living the way the world tells us that we're losers, we create this mental block that just says we're not enough, we can't get to that goal, and it makes going after that goal much harder than it needs to be. Have a hard goal. Figure out where you're coming short and what you're learning along the way. Celebrate that, feel good about yourself, and build yourself up so that you can continue to go after that goal, or maybe decide to have a different goal altogether. If my goal had always been that I was going to keep my leg, I would have a very different life right now. I would be in a wheelchair when I didn't need to be. And I have enough friends in wheelchairs who have to be that would tell me, you don't need to be there. You get out of that thing and let go of what is holding you back. But sometimes it's not a matter of always going after the same goals, but realizing maybe there are different goals that are better for me to have. And the win anyway process of reviewing where you've been, of celebrating what you've done, of reassessing where you're going to go, and then taking massive action to go towards it. The win anyway process is what I go out and talk about when I do leave this win anyway cave in the bottom of my house and speak to audiences whenever I can.
I absolutely love your message and the way that you message it, because I totally believe, and I talk about this a lot, that if we don't celebrate our little successes, we'll never have big success. And those little successes are so important. And I love your win anyway. I think that is a fabulous way to look at things. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
And I want to go so far as to say I might not have a leg issue, but how many issues do I have that no one can see? How many internal issues do we all have and face that make us feel inadequate, that maybe our outside does not reflect that, but we all have something we're battling. We all have different things that make us feel, less than or different or whatever terminology you want to use, that we can take that same philosophy and realize that we can let go of those things and win. I mean, I think that's the incredible part of what your philosophy is because it's not just about, your one particular thing of having to let go of your leg. It's what in our lives can we relate to with you that we need to let go of, because we can't, I have a story I tell about if you have a tight fist on something, you have no way to receive what it is you're asking for as long as you keep a tight fist on whatever that is. And I think that's what your life demonstrates, is that letting go of something that you don't really want to let go of. I mean, that's the thing, is you didn't want to let go of your leg of all things.
Right.
So I think it's incredible that you are transparent enough to talk about it and to tell about it. But I also know that, people that hear you are impacted. I was in the room. I mean, I haven't just heard about you. I've been there when you were speaking, and you had the entire, several hundred people. We were impacted by what you were saying and calculating inside of us what we could change about our own selves.
Well, and now to take it to the next level, where he's helping anybody that wants to be a good speaker has to have a good story, and how to tell that story and how to be impactful when you're speaking publicly. To take your story and be able to help motivate others into being able to speak clearly and tell their story with passion. I mean, I love what you were saying about the fact that you were trying to hold back when you were talking about your son's death, and in reality, what you really needed to do is to show your passion and show your sad side.
Yeah. Well, there's no rules. I think that's one of the keys that you taught me in that moment. There was maybe not even spoken but implied, and that was there's really not rules when you have a story to tell. You have to follow your own rules, kind of, because I was trying to protect everybody else from becoming emotional or from becoming heartbroken. I wasn't standing there so that someone would feel sorry for me.
Right.
And I was demonstrating wrongly, the impact it was having on me, because, that was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. But for me to be stoic or non-emotional I had to work really hard at that. And I think that was the amazing part of what you did for me, is you set me free of feeling like I couldn't be what I really was in that moment, because it is, I mean, when I think about things, I do get emotional about it.
Sure. Being that real person and letting that real person through allows us to stop worrying about you, assuming you're able to be emotional without being overly emotional. It allows us to go, okay, she's okay. She's okay with what she feels enough to share it, but now I can feel something. I can feel what she feels, so that when I feel her pain, I can also then equally feel her victory.
Yes.
And
I think you said those exact words.
I might have. You never know. I only have a limited number of acts that I can do.
You're something else.
So for people that, because I'm sure we have some people listening right now that either are speakers or would like to be speakers, what are a couple of tips you could give people that are maybe just starting out and maybe just even thinking about becoming a speaker?
Well, one of the biggest problems people have when they go out and speak is that they speak for themselves. Because I want to go out and speak, because I want to be on stage, or I want to sell my product. Me. And frankly, you don't matter. And you kind of matter because you got to be up there speaking, but it's your message that matters. And if your message is all about you, your audience is going to tune out because they don't see what's in it for them. And speaking is basically selling. You are selling an idea at the very least. When I go out and talk about winning anyway, yeah, I can talk about how I've won anyway, but I usually don't start with how I've won anyway. I talk about how my kids have won anyway. I think that is probably one of the main stories you heard, Kim, in that keynote, was when I talked about my daughter and going through chemotherapy and dealing with her brain tumor and how she has chosen to live anyway, and realizing that she only has so much control over her life. So when people hear stories about other people instead of about the speaker, it helps build your credibility as a speaker, and then they want to hear more about you. But ultimately, no matter what you're talking about, if there isn't a payoff for your audience feels like you've wasted their time. And so you kind of have to let them know right up front that you have something to offer them, that you understand their pain, you understand what they're going through because you've been there to a point, and you have the promise of a solution for them. And to have all those things, you have to get outside of yourself. You have to put yourself in the shoes of your audience. And so that to me is the number one tip I can give anybody, is to don't make it about you, make it about them.
I love that.
I love that. And you know, that was one of the things that I was trying to tell my story, not because I needed to tell my story, but I needed people to have hope that they could get past something as traumatic as that. And that is like, that's a different twist than going out and just telling people so they cry with you. You know, that was not the point. And so I think that's where the disconnect for me is, you know, I'm trying not to make them sad. I'm trying to make sure they understand they can live through these things.
Right.
And so I love the fact that you are quick to tell about your children and your wife and, you know, your whole family, and the impact that all of these things that people could, and again, I'm going to say they could just give up or they could stay isolated, and you don't. And I love that about you. I mean, you are when we did that session, it was a superhero conference. Like, that was the theme for the conference. And you showed up in your Superman shirt and cape. And I'm thinking, you truly are a Superman with a cape. Every time you show up and give someone that attitude that they can win, you know, that you demonstrate that. You demonstrate how to be a superhero to yourself, to your family, to your business, to... I just think that's an incredible gift you give when you speak.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That is certainly the focus I want to have, and the focus that I want all the people that I work with to have, to think about what that gift is they can give to other people.
So do you have any tips on how to, some of us are not very funny people, and I know how important humor is when you're speaking. What is a good way to bring humor into the conversation?
Well, the nice thing is you rarely have to bring humor into your situation. Your situation has humor. You just have to find it. Sometimes you need to talk to other people because they see it and you don't. And a lot of times you are funny. You just don't think you're funny, but other people think you're funny. And they're not laughing at you. They're just laughing next to you. So you don't have to be a laugh out loud, necessarily funny kind of person. You just need to find the twist. Humor is as simple as something that's unexpected, something that is exaggerated. And when I talk about my leg, I very rarely use the word amputation. I have today, just because we're in more of a conversation. But when I'm on stage, I talk more in terms of getting an upgrade and having a super deluxe leg and that new foot smell, because that just works better. People laugh, but that isn't adding anything. It's simply redefining in some ways what's already there. So what in whatever situation you have is funny. You know, like with Kim, you know, okay, you've got a really tough topic when you talk about your son passing away. Have you found humor in your speech over the years?
Yes, sir.
It's there, even in the darkest of circumstances. And it's important that we find that, because if our audience stays down too long, we lose them. And they end up lost inside their own heads instead of coming out so that we can lead them to that hope that we are trying to sell. Because really, no matter what we're talking about, and we could be selling bananas, and we're selling hope. Even if you're just selling the hope that you get some potassium in and you're no longer hungry for 5 minutes. Hope is involved in everything we talk about. So your Hope to Hope conference is certainly appropriate.
Well, you know, I'm not sure that you and I didn't have a conversation back then about that we're in the business of hope. Like, that was one of the things I think you and I had a conversation just about that very thing, that the reason we speak is for that. It's, you know, yes, we are in business to make money, and yes, we have products and services we sell, and yes, that's in books, you know, that's part of it. But the truth is, all of that still revolves around giving someone hope to have a better life in personal or business ways.
Right. We never buy a book just thinking, well, I'll just read the book. No, we have the book hoping it teaches us something, hoping it entertains us. A lot of times these days, we're buying a book hoping it completely transforms our life, which may be expecting a little bit too much, but anything we go out and purchase.
There's no magic bullet? Is that what you're saying?
Well, there is a magic bullet, but only if you're making some sort of like salad shake or whatever those things are, those smoothies.
Oh my goodness, that was a good one. Well, you know, if someone is wanting to be a speaker, how can they get in contact with you? How can they get connected to you? I know you have Facebook, and I know you are an avid Toastmasters guru, I would say. But
Well,
how can they get in contact with you so that they can see what kind of services you offer, and you do this remotely also. You don't have to be in person. You don't have to be in your bat cave to do it.
Most of my clients are not local. I have local clients here in Colorado, but I work with clients all over the world. I've worked with people in Canada, people in Korea, people in Australia, and Skype is a wonderful thing. There's always an opportunity to work with somebody with communication the way it is now. And the best way people can get in touch with me, I have this really difficult email, rich@richhopkins.com.
Okay, I'm putting it in the comments so that nobody messes it up.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
You can Google me. If you Google Rich Hopkins, you'll find me. You'll also find a stunt driver, stuntman for Hollywood. You'll also find Rich Hopkins and the Luminarios. But if you had speaker, you'll pretty much just get me. But you'll find me, I think, still on page 1, even with those other famous Rich Hopkins in the world.
I love it.
Do you have a website that
richhopkins.com?
Would that be www?
You can, but you don't have to. We have graduated into a world where www doesn't even need to be used.
It doesn't even have to be used anymore. Okay, I put that in the comments too, so that way they can get in contact with you. I cannot say thank you enough for you being willing to come on and let us harass you and table topics you, and for all our Toastmasters, friends that understand. But you are doing so many amazing things for people. What would be your final thing you want to tell everybody about just you and your family and public speaking and life in general?
The most important phrase that I ever share in any speech is this question: are you who you always wanted to be, or who the world has let you become? And whether that is becoming a speaker, whether that is becoming a parent, a spouse, becoming just the best person you want to be, that question is about you defining your own goals, you setting up your own victories. Because the world shouldn't be your yardstick.
I love that.
That's profound.
I love that.
Absolutely profound.
And I love that you are absolutely defining your own way in this life.
Well, thank you. My wife questions that sometimes, but we're we're working on that. We're winning anyway, and thriving on, and all that jazz.
And wearing your Superman shirt.
Right. No, not today. It's at the cleaners.
I was so devastated when you came on and you didn't have it on. I'm thinking, what?
I was trying to look halfway professional,
I love it. Well, thank you, sir, for everything. And thank you for what you did to change my life. And I am sure the impact you will make on all of our listeners. So we appreciate you, and we hope you can join us on some of the other sessions. But thank you so much for being on today.
Absolutely. Have a great conference.
All right. Thank you,
sir.
It was really great talking with you, Rich.
Good to meet you, Coni.
Well, this is the Hope to Hope conference, and I'm telling you, it's just proven to be one more amazing sauce.
Exactly.
In this powerful day of people just I'm just in awe. I just can't help it. I know everybody thinks I'm so excitable, and I am. But
it's true.
But true.
These people are amazing.
Yeah. And Rich is somebody you really want to get connected to. He's down to earth, but he is so incredible. He is so incredible. So thank you guys for coming to the Hope to Hope Conference. I'm Kim White with the My Sexy Business team.
I'm Coni Meyers with Crystalline Moments Success Movement and Publishing.
And we will be back at 1:30 Central Time,
11:30 Pacific Time,
and 2:30 Eastern Time, I think.
You got it.
Love you guys.
Take care.